Welcome to First Time Watching. A group of teens stumble upon an Aztec death flute, and even though the word death is right there in the name, they still decide it's a great idea to blow into it. That's the setup for the horror movie Whistle. In this video, I'll explain the ending right after a full movie recap, so please like, subscribe, and hype up the video as we jump into the recap of Whistle. The guys are playing the most important game of the year when their star player Mason gets spooked by a figure in the stands. He shoots the final shot of the game while an entity walks towards him, and as he scores, the scorched man disappears. But after the game, Mason runs off to the locker rooms and takes a creepy jar from his locker. As the scorching man comes at him, he breaks the jar and tells the man to leave him alone. He disappears and the team enters the locker room, but after in the shower, the burning man reappears and shoves his fist down Mason's throat and burns him alive. 6 months later, Chris is drawing on the roof when her cousin Remy barges in. She moved in with his family, and he reminds her to get ready because they gotta get to school. They arrive on Pellington High. Remy gives Chris the Grant tour, and they arrive at her locker. But the jocks stop her from opening it because that locker used to belong to Mason. Grace tells the guys to calm down. The new girl couldn't have known about that, but she does have quite the reputation. Apparently, she's a junkie who killed her dad. At remark grants the douche a knee in the balls. Mr. Craven saw that and gives all of them detention. Ellie sticks up for Chris, but Craven saw that girl knees someone in the genital bag, and for forcing her opinion upon him, she has earned herself detention too. After they all leave, she finds the Aztec-looking urn in Mason's locker and opens it up. Inside, there is a skull whistle, and just as she is about to blow on it, the school bell rings. During detention, the flute falls from her bag, so Craven tells her to bring it to him. He is very interested in the instrument and is actually able to translate some of the Mayan words on the whistle. It means summon the dead. He confiscates the whistle from Chris and lets them all go with some homework. Outside, Grace invites them all over to her house to make the extra homework together. Even Dean and his charming personality can come. Meanwhile, Craven is checking out what this whistle might be worth and is thinking about cashing in when he decides to blow on it. Outside, Remy asks how her first day was, and she tells him Ellie seems nice, which gives Remy a great idea. He runs back inside and sneaks into the classroom. He checks Craven's laptop and sees the eBay page about the Aztec Death Whistle. Outside, Noah introduces himself to Chris. He is the youth pastor in this town. He invites her to come over to his church sometimes, but he is basically just a drug dealer. Remy comes running out and tries to stop him, but Noah throws him on the car and puts a knife in his face. He lets Remy go and takes off. She asks Remy what his story is, so he explains that parents think he is great, but he is actually selling drugs to young kids, and one of those kids died. Craven is looking at boats when he wants to take another look at his moneymaker, but it's gone. Remy took it. So, at Grace's house, Remy shows them the whistle. After hours, Craven is still hanging around school and starts to wander the halls to look for the janitor, but he finds something else. The janitor appears behind him and snaps him out of it. He goes back to his classroom, and a bloody patient appears behind him, puts his hands in Craven's chest and rots him from the inside. At the party, Grace blows on the whistle, and they all hear the deadly screams it makes. But after nothing happens, Chris takes off. Ellie follows her and invites her to the annual Pellington Harvest Festival. Remy comes running after them because Ellie forgot her diabetes medication. After Ellie leaves, Chris asks Remy if Ellie's straight. He tells her he doesn't know, but they'll find out soon enough. That night, while Chris is pondering about what to text Ellie, she sees someone outside in the tree when Remy barges in, which makes her accidentally press send on her text. But Ellie reacts positively to it. She is really into Chris. Grace is still in the pool researching the Aztec Death Whistle when a voice calls out to her. It sounds like she's surrounded. A hand touches her face from behind, but disappears when her little brother calls her. He tells her to get inside. The next morning, Chris and Remy arrive at school and barge into an assembly because Craven died last night of stage 4 lung cancer. Ellie starts zoning out, and one of the kids in front of her is acting weird. She looks at her and calls her name, but then it's gone. Grace hands the whistle to Chris, and they decide to take it back to Mason's family. So after school, Chris and Ellie go to his parents' house. They knock, but the door was already open. A woman appears. Her name is Ivy. She traveled the world collecting strange artifacts, so they tell her they found her grandson's whistle, to which she says that they didn't find it. It found them. It took her grandson. It took her daughter, and it will take many more. Chris says they were told that the markings read summon the dead, but she corrects them. The markings say, summon your death. Everybody has a set date they'll die, but after hearing the whistle, that all changes. It guides death towards you. It finds you earlier. Death looks like you. It makes you what you'll become in your last breath. Ellie doesn't really believe her, so they go to the hospital where Ellie works to look at Craven and Mason's files. In Mason's files, Chris finds that his bone structure suggests he was in his late 40s, but that's impossible. The guy was just 17. Craven's cancer wouldn't have killed him last night. He would have had at least 10 to 15 more years. But they all heard the whistle, which means death is coming for all of them. Remy arrives at Harvest Fest and catches Grace buying weed from our sweet youth pastor. He shoots his shot with Grace, but she rejects him. Chris and Ellie arrive at the festival. Noah walks up to them and calls Ellie a dyke, so she kicks him in the nuts. He takes out his knife and tells the girls he wasn't planning to hurt anybody. So Chris steps on his hand, takes his knife, and puts it in his nose. She tells him, "What about the kid your drugs killed?" But he still believes he did nothing wrong, so she cuts his nose, and they run off. Grace ran into the hay maze where Dean tries to catch up with her. She finds an old woman in there who calls to her, so she runs away from her. Meanwhile, Ellis and Chris tell Remy to come with them to find Grace and Dean. Grace is freaking out, and she calls Dean in a panic. The old woman comes crawling towards her. Grace smacks her in the face with a shovel, but as she does, she herself falls over too. It's like she hit herself. As she gets back up, so does the old version of her, so Grace tries to outrun her again. Dean searches for Grace, but can't seem to find her. She is in a dead end, so she crawls through the hay to the other side, but Granny Grace follows her into the tunnel, catches her, and puts her fingers into her mouth. Grace starts to turn older, but manages to escape and makes it to the middle of the maze. She screams to Dean that she's at the spiral, but old Grace is there too, and sticks her tongue in Grace's mouth. She dies of old age as she rings the bell. So after that, Ellie and Chris try to explain to Remy and Dean what happened to Grace. Dean doesn't believe any of it, insults Remy by telling him hotties will never go for uggos like him, and takes off. He goes out drinking and then drives home where his version of death is waiting for him. His dad knocks on his door. He tells him he better not be drinking and driving again. That'll be the death of him. Meanwhile, the girls are back home, where Chris tells Ellie that she OD'd about a year ago. Her dad found her, and on the way to the hospital a truck hit them, and that's how her dad died. Ellie understands and kisses Chris. She tells her everybody is fucked up. She just knows it. Remy is still sitting outside, and it starts raining blood. He sees himself in a work accident at the steel mill. The next day, Chris, Ellie, and Remy return to see Ivy to ask her how to stop it. She tells them death is unstoppable, but there is a way to change its course. You can give your death someone else's life when death is near. Mark someone else with your blood, and you will be spared. Chris's death is behind her with a needle in her arm. Ivy tells them death is not a choice. It is inevitable, but living is up to you, and then she dies. Chris tells the others she saw her death. She OD'd. Remy is freaking out because he is really thinking about killing someone to save himself, and he drives off without the girls. Meanwhile, Dean's room door suddenly opens. It's his death, so he throws a chair at the door. His parents are freaking out about his behavior, but it is already in the room with him and grabs him from behind. A truck slams into him, and his entire body breaks as if he is in the most horrible accident imaginable. At home, Chris realizes who Remy really hates. He hates Noah. Remy goes into the church with a gun he bought from a guy at the steel mill and points it at Noah. He tells him to come with him, but gets distracted by the bells. So Noah disarms him, kicks his ass, and grabs the gun. But Remy laughs in his face and walks towards him. He tells him he doesn't die this way, so he isn't worried, and smacks a metal plate onto Noah's face and then drags him to the steel mill, the place where he is supposed to die. He takes Noah's pills from him and then forces them down his throat. He cuts open his hand and waits for death to get close, but just before he can mark Noah, Chris and Ellie come running. They beg Remy not to mark him. They can fix it. He can't do it. Remy is a good person. He can't kill. He says everyone has to die once. That gives Chris a great idea, but Remy tells them it's too late. Death is with them. It's coming for Remy and starts to rip him to pieces. He disappears into a mist of blood. Chris and Ellie run to the car to get Ellie's insulin so that they can stop their hearts long enough to die. Then she gets an AED to restart their hearts. Ellie works on the cocktails, and Chris fills an ice bath and wants to do Ellie first, but Ellie stabs Chris. She has to make sure she lives. Chris dies in the ice bath, and then Ellie pulls her out. She stabs Chris with glucogen and then charges the AED. Meanwhile, Noah wakes back up and tries to break his restraints and grabs the gun. Ellie tries to revive Chris, but death is keeping her under, so Ellie massages her heart until the AED recharges again. Noah takes a hammer and tries to force his way into the garage where the girls are. Ellie's death is lurking nearby and wants to take her, but she begs it to wait so that she can save Chris. Noah shoots into the room and hits the AED. He hits Ellie, and death is right next to her. She begs Chris to please come back, but death is keeping her under. Chris remembers that dying is not a choice. It's inevitable. impossible, but living is up to you. She shakes off death and swims back up. Chris wakes up, but Ellie's death is right there with them. She is seizing while Noah forces himself inside. There is a trail of Ellie's blood on the floor. Noah reaches into it and prays to it. Ellie's death disappears. She is saved. Noah's death appears. He shoots at it and gets hit with the bullets too and collapses onto the floor. Death comes for him. Chris takes care of Ellie's gunshot graze and holds on to her. They had a hell of a first date. 3 months later, Death still has a strong grip on Chris, but her love for Ellie is strong enough to keep her going, to make her choose life every day. Another girl walks towards her locker, opens it, and finds the whistle inside. It's calling to her. That girl, Asha, is invited on stage to play the school anthem on her violin. She walks onto the stage, puts her violin down, and blows on the whistle in front of the entire school. So, let's take a look at the ending. Throughout the movie, we learn quite a bit about Aztec death whistles, mainly from Ivy, Mason's grandmother. She explains that our deaths are planned from birth, but when you hear the whistle, death will find you much faster. So, after Grace blows the whistle, all of them are marked. Ivy also reveals that the only way to survive is by marking someone else with your blood, which transfers the whistle's curse to them. However, the movie then leans into what has become a bit of a horror trope. Of course, the main characters eventually discover that killing yourself can also stop death. I'm sorry, but I've seen at least 3 movies last year that used the exact same solution, so it feels a little underwhelming. With that information, we now know there are 2 ways to survive the curse, and there are still 3 people left who are marked. That means one of them has to go if the 2 girls are going to get their happy ending. And honestly, Remy should have lived. He only stopped what he was doing because the girls told him they knew how to stop the curse, even though at that point in the movie they clearly had no idea. So Remy ends up dying needlessly, right as he was about to transfer the curse to Noah. But of course, Noah has to live so he can save Ellie. Chris dies exactly the way death showed her. Ellie injects her with the syringe and kills her, but she's unable to revive her afterward. That means it's all up to Chris, who somehow manages to shake off death by choosing to live. And Ellie survives because Noah is apparently stupid enough to stick his fingers into her blood, transferring the curse to himself. But I'm still not over Chris's death. How exactly can she decide to live after she's already dead? It's not like Remy got that option after being vaporized into a bloody mist. So honestly, I'm kind of glad that Asha blows the whistle in front of the entire school at the end, because Ellie and Chris really had no right surviving this whole ordeal. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.